All right. Hello and welcome to everybody who's getting joined in. I went ahead and started it early a little bit here, about 10 seconds, just to give everybody a chance to actually make it into the call. So we're going to go ahead and get started here now for the day. And again, welcome everybody. I definitely appreciate you taking some time out to be with me on this call. I know you've all got a lot of things going on, a lot of people to talk to, a lot of things to talk about. So I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk with me for a minute so you can go out and have some more conversations. All right. So again, today we're going to be talking today about compressors, kits, and related components. It's AC selling season, right? So it's that time of the year, time to start talking about AC and what our opportunities look like. And so this is just going to be a real quick refresher of some of the AC components, how they work. And then we're going to talk about what it looks like for you as far as our AC program goes for this AC selling season. So, again, just a quick rundown. When we think about AC, a lot of times we think of it being kind of complicated, but in all reality, it's not. It's really just a handful of components that are working together to get this, a single job done, which is just removing heat, right? And so we have a couple different things that are working at play to do all that. And so if we start on the left-hand side here, we see we have our compressor on the left-hand side on the top. And then we have our expansion device. And now the expansion device is either going to be a TXV or an orifice tube. Very similar systems. I'll show you that here in just a second, but they regulate a little bit differently. Right now, on the compressor and the expansion device, we can categorize these kind of like our pressure changers, right? So the compressor is going to increase the pressure of the refrigerant and then force it through the system. And then the expansion device, whether it's the TXV or the orifice tube, is then going to lower the pressure or regulate that pressure as the refrigerant makes its way back throughout the cycle. So there's our pressure changers there on the left. Now, if we look in the middle, we've got our temperature changers, or our stage changers here, right? And that's going to be the condenser and the evaporator core. And here we've got the condenser being mounted under the hood and towards the front of the vehicle to help release the heat from the vehicle itself. And then you've got the evaporator core mounted inside the cabin of the vehicle, which is going to absorb the heat and remove the heat from the cabin of the vehicle. So there's our temperature changers. We've got our pressure changers and our temperature changers here. Now, if we look over to the right-hand side, we end up with our communicators, or you can call them the transportation system or the passageways in which everything gets carried from one component to the other. So the oil and the refrigerant, things like that, are going to be transported or communicated to by the dryer or the receiver, the accumulator, right? And then it's also going to be transported through a series of hoses. Now, normally hoses wouldn't be a big topic of conversation when it comes to AC, but for the last several selling seasons, they have become a bigger topic of conversation, topic of conversation because some of these do have to be replaced when we have a failure of an AC compressor. Because if you see on the bottom right hand side there, we have those AC hoses as an example there that have mufflers on them. When those mufflers get good debris caught up in them, you can't flush them out. So, now when we talk about AC system components, we have to throw hoses in there as one of the more key components because those are, in some cases, one-time use parts, just like at a condenser or a compressor if a compressor fails. So that's our major components there. And we wanted to bring that up about the mufflers on the hoses too, just to remind you, it's a bigger conversation now. But our major components are very simple. We have pressure changers, temperature changers, and then we have transportation to do all of those things. And so really, AC is not as complicated as it seems like it could be. It's just a matter of, a lot of diagnostics that make it a little bit more difficult because there's just a lot of folks that don't know where to start when it comes to a diagnostic. So, it's unfortunate, but we're getting better and better at it every day. And the techs out there that are struggling with it are getting better at it every single day. So it'll just keep getting better. All right, let's put all this together real quick here. We see what the major components are. Well, if we're looking at a system with a TXV valve, remember I said we have one with a TXV and one with an orifice tube. They work very similar, and here's how that all plays out. In the middle here on our modern systems, we've got the PCM or the computer, which is going to control the whole operation. And it's going to command the compressor based on whatever input it's getting from the temperature sensor and how well the system is performing at that time. And when it does that command, the compressor is now going to pressurize the refrigerant into a gas form. and it's going to then force it through the condenser. The first place it goes is the condenser. Then the condenser is going to do exactly as its name implies. It's going to condense. It's going to remove the heat from the system here. And then that's going to change it from a gas back to a liquid state. And that's then going to be forced through the receiver dryer. And then that high pressure liquid refrigerant will go up to the expansion valve. That expansion valve being the TXV in this example here, that's going to regulate that pressure. And at that point, it's going to meter it, drop the pressure. And so now we've got a low pressure amount of refrigerant going into the evaporator core. And then the evaporator core, once again, is going to do as its name states, it's going to draw warm, cabin air across it. And it's going to cause that refrigerant to boil and evaporate. And then it's going to grab the heat and it's going to remove it from the evaporator core at that point and send it back to the compressor and do that cycle all over again. So again, very few components doing a whole lot of work to get a very simple task done, which is just remove heat so we can have a more comfortable cabin temperature. Now, that's the expansion valve system. Again, it's the exact same on an orifice tube system. The only difference being the orifice tube versus the TXV valve. And the orifice tube is another example of why we have to bring up hoses, because some orifice tubes cannot be replaced without replacing the hose. They are captured. They're actually inside of the hose assembly, and there's no way to replace them without destroying the hose assembly. So if you have to have an orifice tube, you have to have a hose. So that's really the big difference between orifice tubes and TXV, is the way that they regulate and the fact that some cannot be replaced on their own. But the system runs the same here. Again, the compressor is going to do its job. It's going to compress. It's going to build that gas, send it over to the condenser, get condensed, turn it back into a liquid, and then remove the heat from it, send it through that orifice tube to drop the pressure. And then when we say drop the pressure with the orifice tube and TXV, you think about it kind of like putting your thumb over the end of a garden hose when it's running, right? You're restricting the path. You're changing the pressure. That's what the orifice tube and the TXV valve do. And then they do the same job, right? Once it lowers that pressure, it deposits that into the evaporator core, where it's then again going to evaporate or boil. And it's going to remove the heat from the cabin, give us that nice cool temperature inside. And then it's going to send it back through the accumulator and back to the compressor and repeat that cycle all over again. So again, they work very similarly. And again, there's really only 5 or 6 components here doing the bulk of the work. So when we replace a system, when we replace a compressor, it's really not a bad idea to replace everything that's in the system if it can't be flushed or cleaned out, because there's only so many things doing what all these tasks are meant to be doing. And one little problem within the system can mess up all the other components. So that's why we talk about AC the way we talk about AC. And when it comes to, ACCs and hitting, we don't want people to, not know all the things that they need to be replacing. And in these cases now, almost all of it has to be replaced, but there's a lot of solutions for it now, which is a good thing. And that's what's going to help us. But one of the things that we have to talk about when we talk about doing an AC job properly is the condenser. Right now, there's really no case to be made for flushing any condenser out there, right? The reality of it is, when you think back to what we just talked about, how the system works, whether it's TXV or orifice tube, right? The first thing in line after the compressor is the condenser. And so any debris that makes its way into the compressor and back out is going to immediately go into the condenser. If we have a failure in the compressor itself, it's going to end up sending debris through the condenser, and you just can't get that stuff out of there. Now, we've had conversations with technicians, and they're very adamant about it, saying, hey, we can flush these things. Look, we'll put the flush in, the material comes back out like it's supposed to, so I must be flushing it, right? Well, yeah, you are flushing some of it, but you're only flushing the paths that it can get through. You're not opening up the paths that are restricted and have been restricted, previously, from debris and soot and things that have built up. And so in many cases, after you do a flush, the bottom half of the condenser is actually still going to be completely plugged up. And so we're not going to get full efficiency out of this condenser, and we're not going to be, doing a justice to our new AC compressor or our system, after we put it all back together, because we're going to be basically starving it of removing heat, because the condenser is not as efficient as it should be. And as you can see on the right-hand side here, the passageways for these condensers are so small at this point. Again, getting any material through it is pretty much impossible, minus the gas that we've got going through it with the AC system. And so, really anything past 2000, 2001, we're going to always recommend a condenser be replaced along with an AC compressor. And luckily, we've got you covered on that, and you're very well covered when it comes to condensers. So we've got them ready for that on the AC selling season. And really, when it comes down to doing a good, successful, complete replacement on a compressor, there's really only a few things we have to make sure of. And one of those is that every inch of the refrigerant should be new or flushed. So if it can be flushed, something like an evaporator core, it should be flushed. If it can't be flushed, like a condenser or one of those hoses with the mufflers, it needs to be replaced so that we have a clean system. And then we also need to make sure we charge it with the exact amount of refrigerant. So we got to have the right tools for the job to make sure we put in only the exact amount it should be in there. And we got to make sure we use the correct type, viscosity, and amount of oil, which luckily with the kits that we're talking about here in just a second, if you have the kit, you don't have to worry about getting the correct type because it's already going to be in the box. So that's another big thing that we have to consider when we do a compressor replacement, whether it's going to be successful or not, is if we get the right oil in there. And then we also still have to make sure we have proper airflow. So even if we do replace the condenser, if we have a restriction, say the fan's not working or the fan clutch is not working, an active grill shutter or something like that is not working properly, we're still going to be starving that new AC system. So we have to make sure we have proper airflow as well. So that's our keys there. So let's again talk about more. What do we have available? What are we going to be offering our customers this year during this AC selling season? We know what we need. We know what the components are. We know how they work. How are we going to stack up? We know we got the condensers taken care of. Well, we've got the kits taken care of as well. And these are going to be huge. They already have been huge. And you're going to be getting a lot of calls on them. And, again, we've been talking about kits for a long time now, starting all the way back in 2005, when it was really more of a virtual kit inventory analysis kind of thing, where we really, there wasn't a whole lot to offer as far as, on the shelf, ready to rock, put it on the car, let's go. It wouldn't really have the way the program was built at the time. It was really just analysis. Can we do this? And then 2007, we actually had retailers start offering the kits in a virtual way, right? And that's where we would, you would basically basket it all on the website, and you would end up usually getting a discount when you basket it all, and it gave you a better warranty. And so the virtual kit was born. And then we started seeing that trend just boom really big. And then so 2015, we started doing prepackaged kits for the customers, and everybody loved those. We had 50 part numbers. Couldn't hardly keep them on the shelves. And there were certain part numbers that went on back order. I mean, everybody loved the fact that everything they needed was in a box minus the condenser, right? So I had the AC compressor, it had the accumulator, it had the orifice tube or TXV, whichever system it had all the seals, it had the oil, everything was ready to rock. And so everybody loved those. And then from 2015 to 2019, that kit offering went from over 50 part numbers to over 300 part numbers. And that's a very short period of time to start building that many kits. The problem with the kits is that, as great as they are, they take up a lot of shelf space, and it can cause some redundancy in inventory. So you may have a kit with, compressor part number 1, 2, 3 on the shelf, and then 10 feet down, the same compressor that comes in that kit by itself on a box, causing that redundancy there. So we didn't want that for you. So the ones that you don't have redundancy on, we have the full kits now. But we also now in 2020, because of the popularity of those big kits, started introducing the service kits. And service kit is the exact same thing as the prepackaged kit. It just does not have the compressor with it. So in these cases, you don't have the redundancy in inventory, because let's say you have that compressor, part number 1, 2, 3, you have it in reman and new on the shelf. Well, you've already got 2 compressors on the shelf. You don't need another one in a box, right? So now you have a reman and a new compressor, and now you have this service kit that has everything else in it that would have come in the full kit. And now your customer can pair it with either the new or reman compressor. They can do either one. So they're going to get their warranty They're going to get the compressor that they want, and they're going to get the full service kit. And we have them covered this selling season. We're ready to go with them. Pretty much really anything that comes into through their door, we're going to have them covered in some way. So with those new service kits, just a kit, no compressor in there, we have over 530 part numbers now, which is going to cover over 221 million vehicles in operation on the road. So we are ready for them with the kits. And now those complete AC kits that have everything in there, all the, everything you need plus the compressor, over 930 kits. So whether they want to pair a service kit with a reman or new, we got them covered. Or they just want the full kit, we have a part number for that as well. And the nice thing about the AC kits, not just for us and for you, but for the shop, they get the guaranteed related sales on all those components that they otherwise maybe wouldn't have gotten if they didn't do the kit, because the kit makes sure we replace everything. Whereas if we just kind of nickel and dime it and do the compressor here or the accumulator there, it's going to end up costing more, and we don't get all those extra components that should be replaced. So it's a really good way to make sure that those components are replaced and we get those sales. It also reduces warranties drastically. When everything's replaced, there's really no chance that we have a comeback unless something was done wrong. And so, it's a really great warranty reduction tool using the kits as well. It also improves your availability. No next day waits on a lot of things. No 2 days out for this one component. That's the one last thing that we need to finish the job. It actually does help with inventory as well. And a lot of surveys have been done, and out of those surveys, 45% of repair facilities that do work on AC say that they are either using a complete kit or a service kit when they perform AC repairs now. So we already know basically half of the service centers out there are using kits. We just got to go find the half that are not, find out why, and make sure they know that we have them, right? Along with the condensers and the service kits themselves. So not only that, we are prepared for them on kits, but we're also prepared for the customers that are working on hybrid and EV this AC selling season. So we've got over 2,000 components now within the hybrid and EV space, right? That range over 34 different product categories at this point, covering about 255 million vehicle application opportunities that are on the road right now. And that's ranging from new and reman compressors all the way up to the kits, even, specific oils for different hybrid and electric vehicles. So we're not just ready for them on condensers. We're not just ready for them on full kits and service kits. We're ready for them for the entire AC selling season, including hybrid and electric vehicles. Again, with over 2,000 different components. When it comes to compressors, 22 SKUs already covering 5 million vehicles in operation. 13 of those are new, 9 are reman, and we've got another 10 headed this way really soon here in 2025 to add yet another 2.7 million vehicles in operation. And that's a pretty big deal. If we find a shop that's working on hybrid and electric vehicles, oftentimes when it comes to AC components, about 99% of what they're getting from the dealership, because there's just not a lot of good, quality aftermarket out there. Well, you have that now with this program. And here's the thing. If you look on the screen, you'll see that's it's talking about a new 4-page brochure. It's got that part number down there. All of these little brochures that you're seeing pop up on the screen, those are available at 4s.com. Or if you have, or you can actually look at it and print it. But if you have your rep come by, if you show them some of the stuff that you want actual physical copies of, they can get those for you. Because I think this is a great little brochure to have for shops that work on hybrid and EV, to know that you have, a quality program behind that for this AC season. So they have another reputable, partner to work with for AC compressors. Now, I said we talk about hoses a little bit more. Well, we see we're ready on all the kits. We're ready on all the, hybrid electric vehicle. We're ready on condensers. Well, we're ready on hoses as well. And we're a basic manufacturer of these hoses. And what that means is we can provide quality because we're experienced in engineering, precision machining, and custom tooling. We're building it from the ground up. We're doing this all ourselves. right? And that's going to help us ensure each component of the assembly meets or exceeds that OE fit, form, and function. And that's really important because some of these hoses now have such intricate bends and turns, and they have the mufflers on them now. Some of them have the captured orifice tubes. There's so much going on in some of these hoses, and they have to be strong enough to deal with 1234YF refrigerant as well as 134A. They have to be compatible with both, and they have to be able to fit the way that they were originally designed. So there's a lot of effort that goes into making sure these hoses are correct. Even here in Irving, Texas, at the vehicle test facility where I am now, we have some guys in the back that are, I'm not sure what they're testing today. It might be VVT components, it might be hoses, I don't know, but they're testing components all day, every day. And when we come up with a new hose, just to verify that it fits, it gets sent here to our techs in the back that do the testing. And they actually do on vehicle testing, not just on the car and making sure that it does what it's supposed to do, but how does it fit? How does it work? How does it go in when it's, when you're reinstalling it? All of that is actually checked before it ever goes into a bag and it gets sent out to your stores. So again, on hoses, we've got them covered, and we actually have a lot of hoses at this point, over 3,000 part numbers. And the reason we have so many is because we actually noticed about, a few years back around 2020, that we were a little bit further behind some of the competition when it came to availability, as far as coverage and availability for our customers. And what we don't want is for your customer to have to call another customer or another supplier for a hose or an orifice tube when they can get everything else from you through our program, right? We don't want that. We want them to have a one-stop shop. And we were falling behind on that with the hoses. Well, we fixed that real fast and in a hurry. You can see there from 2020 to 2024, we added over 1,200 SKUs. And actually, by the end of Q2 this year, we'll be at 3,300 SKUs in our hose line. So at this point, it doesn't matter what comes through the shop. We're probably going to have the hose for it, because those 3,300 hoses that we have and will have by the end of Q2 here is going to give us over 94% coverage, including light cars, light truck, heavy duty, hybrid, everything. It's going to give you an opportunity to get the complete sell, get the complete job on all these AC compressor replacements that are going to be coming up. So don't forget, we've got you covered on hoses too. So it's not just condensers, it's not just hoses, it's not just service kits. I mean, we're trying to make sure everything that they could possibly need, you can give to them when it comes to AC selling season this year. And that includes some of the assortment kits, right? So don't forget about the assortment kits. We still have the original, the 24-813, just a nice little service parts kit. It's got the caps, got the O-rings, got the seals. Then there's an update to that, the 24-818, which is going to be the same kit basically, but with YF components included. So we're going to have some capabilities to deal with 1234 YF and 134A. Then we have a YF supplement tray, 24-819, just more components for those customers that are getting a lot more vehicles with YF systems. And then we even have a 24-815 box there. That's a heavy duty service parts kit. So we have them covered from the time they tear it down to the time they put it all back together. We have everything available for them, including a YF assortment pack, part number 24-800 here. That's going to have all these components that are necessary for the YF AC service jobs. And so what's also cool about that, I'll go back. If you look at those boxes and that box, they're all interchangeable and they're all stackable. So they're all basically the same box. They don't have to keep up with a bunch of different styles of, organization there. And again, what you see on the screen there with that flyer for the YF valve assortment, that is a flyer you can pull down from 4s.com, or again, get with your rep and they can get you some actual printed copies of that. So again, we have them ready when it comes to everything from the parts to even the sealing, even the tools that they might need to get the job done right. Some of these tools are actually really cool. The top one there on the left, the 69636, if they are working with a vehicle that has an ECV compressor, there's a very high likelihood they're going to want one of those because that does help them with diagnosing an ECV compressor without having to go through a lot of teardown. Really getting deep into the system, they can actually do some functionality with that prior to doing a lot of teardown. So that's a really cool tool. That dual refrigerant sight glass tool on the top right hand, those were actually on back order for a little bit last year just because they were just so popular. It's a really great tool. It gives the technician the ability to not only verify after they do a job that the refrigerant and oil going through is clean, but if they want to verify that there's something wrong as far as debris in the system, prior to tearing it apart, they can use a sight glass tool for that as well. So, that was one that was pretty popular last year. I know we beefed up the inventory this year for them to make sure we had availability for that. So, a couple really cool tools there. So, again, we've got them covered for tooling as well, even oil, right? So, obviously, if they get the kit, they're going to get the right oil in that kit. And that'll help them out. That'll make their life a lot easier. But even if they're not doing a kit, if they're just servicing an AC system and they need some oil, all the oils are available through the program as well. The correct oils also, not just a bunch of universal stuff. It's actually the correct oil. And that really does make a difference. And it is important when it comes to a vehicle that's hybrid or electric or YF versus 134A. So we have the right oils for the job there as well. And then we're ready for you. We're ready for the season. We know the sales are going to be coming. And so we have the warehouse, we have the DC, they're all prepped up, they're ready to go. You see there 92% fill average, 93% on-time delivery average, even 94+% preseason order excellence. And that's even going to continue getting better. It's great this year. It's going to be even better next year when we get the new DC move done. And that's going to give us close to 600,000 square feet of distribution space to get more out quicker to you all, especially on the West Coast. And it's going to break down a lot of the 2-day waits to where we take those 2-day waits out of the equation. And so, we're ready for this season. We'll be even more ready for next season. So don't worry about whether or not you're going to be able to get it. We'll get it to you. And so the last thing I want to bring up before we wrap up here, we can't not talk about air door actuators when it comes to AC selling season, because even if we do everything right, we sell the kit, we do the job right, if we can't get the air through the vents, it's really not going to help us, right? So air door actuators are another big category, and they're actually second only to compressors in volume sales when it comes to the AC category because of how many there are and the fact that a lot of people just opt to replace all of them when they have to pay to get the dash pulled out in the first place. So you got some European models here that even have 7 different actuators. So there's a good opportunity to get 7 sales versus 1 whenever we have an actuator call come in. But we've got them covered on it. Plenty of SKUs, over 600 SKUs at this point. And again, you see a huge increase there from 2020 to 2025. We've put a lot of increases and a lot of coverage, focus on this particular category when it comes to things like hoses and when it comes to things like air door actuators to make sure you have the fullest program of AC that you go out to market with. And again, we do now, when it comes to all of the different components that you could possibly need, we are ramping up on every single category, again, including even air door actuators, where we have over 600 available to you now, another 100 planned for this year. But that 242 million vehicles in operation, that's a big deal. That means 242 million vehicles on the road today, we have at least one blend door for. But you have to think most of those have at least 3 to 4. So that's 242 million opportunities times 3 or 4, which is really, really kind of awesome. And that's one of the reasons we have the kits for these available now as well. Because again, we know a lot of customers are just doing all of them when they have to pull the dash out, and it's just increasing those opportunities for us over and over and over here. And again, the last thing I'll say here is sales support. Make sure you're utilizing that 4s.com site for all this material. And again, also talk with your rep that's out there. and make sure that you're asking for printed materials if they have it available to you, because it's really good information for the shops. And there's a lot of folks that go out there and flyer drop, and I don't think we do that. I think we actually put stuff on a flyer there for people to see that makes sense, that gives them some type of value. And so if you have an opportunity to print these out or get your standard rep to print some out for you, please do so. I think the shops will appreciate it very much. So with that, again, I know you all have a lot to do today as well. So I, again, appreciate you being here, taking some time, spending it with me, and talking about AC related components. I hope it's a great AC selling season for you. And I hope to see you here next month as well when we talk about electronic throttle bodies. So with that, I'll let everybody get back to it. Everybody have a wonderful day and a happy AC selling season. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next month.